What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. Today I'm joined by Matt Harvey, long-running guitarist and vocalist for the, I should have said guitarist and vocalist for the long-running grindcore death metal band EXHUMED. Welcome to the show, Matt. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
Yeah. You know what? I want to kick it off because I want to get into the jerky conversation. You were just talking about jerky, and I definitely want to get into that because I have opinions on that as well. But I do want to kind of like shout out. We put out your 6 songs to die with, and I thought it was a very interesting 6 songs to die with. I think that you kind of did it right. You know, a lot of people try to like, I don't know, put cool songs up there that like maybe like go in with their band or their sound or like what they really are into. As far as like heavy music goes, you were all over the place, and it was quite a. I listened to all these songs when I'm posting about them, so it was interesting. It was an interesting soundscape to go through. So I just wanted to point that out for you.
Oh, well, thanks. You know, I mean, I listen to, I wouldn't say all kinds of music, but pretty much all kinds of music. I've never developed a taste for reggae or ska, and opera I find kind of off-putting. But pretty much everything else I like at least, you know, a little bit of. And, you know, when the question was the way it was worded, I was just like, well, if I can only listen to these 6 songs, like, fuck, first I should pick some longer songs because as much as I love Napalm Death, like, you know what I mean? I need more than like a minute 10. So I need some longer songs, and I need some songs that have some kind of variety, you know? And it's, you know, that's why when they ask you like, oh, if you get only 10 Desert Island albums, that's why they never let you have compositions, because it's like a cheat, you know, it's like a cheat code. But yeah, I thought about it like, you know, how would I want to spend my musical time or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, you know, variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, it was the variety was there. I mean, the only thing that I was like, the last song you picked, I don't want to give everything away. I'm not going to, you know, put anything out there. But the last song on the list, I was like, okay, I could definitely see that one. But the other ones, I mean, obviously Metallica's on the list, but that's on a lot of people's lists. So it's just interesting to see what songs people select from that band. But the other titles that you selected were quite interesting. And I prefer and I enjoy those lists better than I would, like, you know, if it's all like, oh yeah, I'm in this band, and every band that I'm listening is the same exact, you know, genre or style. So it was very palate cleansing, as I would say.
Well, good. You know, I mean, I think, you know, it's funny. People will come to like an EXHUMED gig and they're like, man, if you guys just did a tour and it was like you guys and Impaled and General Surgery, like that'd be the sickest. And I'd be like, that'd be great. And I love those bands, and they're all friends of mine. It would be really fun. But I don't think you really want to get what you want in that scenario, because it's like, I love chocolate ice cream, therefore give me 3 kinds of specific chocolate ice cream. It's like, well, maybe 1 scoop of chocolate, 1 scoop of pralines and cream, and then 1 scoop of strawberry might be better overall than just, you know, chocolate. So
I agree and disagree. I would be there for all the chocolates. I don't want any of that praline stuff. But I agree with the lineup of the bands. You know, like mix it up a little bit. When it comes to my ice cream, just chocolate or chocolate adjacent. Thank you. Now that we've got that out of the way. So Matt, a lot of cool things I'd like to bring up and talk to you about. So I'm trying to figure out which one to start with. I guess we should start with, you have a new album on the way next month. What is it? Red Asphalt. You guys have released 2 singles by now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 2. You just did one last week or this week. And then again, you have a tour also coming up as well to kind of support that. And then you have another tour booked like almost directly after that, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I'm trying to see, you know, how long it takes for my wife to just murder me.
Yeah. Well, you may be sleeping on the couch after this summer, but you know what you got on the.
But I'll get paid, so it'll be fine. She'll let me back in.
Yeah, there you go. You get a little bit of royalties from some album sales maybe in that quarter, but you also get to take home the tour earnings, which are going to be swimming in the gold coins as Scrooge McDuck. You know,
we're gonna be keeping those lights on.
That's good. That's all that matters. You got to keep the studio flowing. It's got to get powered. You can't just let the car shop next to you run the block, you know?
Exactly.
But the first little trek here will be Oxygen Destroyer and Nomos, and that kicks off in your neck of the woods on the 19th of next month, running all the way around the country, and then back to San Francisco in the middle of March. And then you head overseas with your label mates Gruesome, which also is another thing I want to bring up later down the line. But we'll get into that. There's so many things. But yeah, so the new album, Red Asphalt, and then you got these 2 tours kind of supporting all that. Let's talk about the album a little bit here, and then I want to kind of dive in because you guys have such a long history, and we've already kind of spent 10 minutes like fucking up with the audio earlier on. And I'm not trying to keep you here all night or all day. But yeah, so new album. Talk to me about like what is the difficulty level of like writing an album like 35 years into being in a band?
I think that the difficulty is that, we sort of, I'm going to just give context, but
yeah,
when I was a kid in the sort of late 80s going into the 90s, there was a period of time where you would see your favorite bands kind of change their style or whatever. And it was very upsetting. Cold Lake by Celtic Frost, I remember just feeling, really personally hurt. And keep in mind that these are the thoughts of a 14-year-old, but even like when Death got rid of the drippy blood and the inverted cross and the logo, I was upset, when Necroticism came out and they had that little clean guitar part in Pedigree Butcher, I was like, what the fuck? Why is there 2 seconds of non-distorted guitar on this album? So I always had this idea, like, oh, when I get my own band, like, we're never gonna sell out. We're never gonna be fucking wimpy and
hilarious.
And 30 years later, it's like, okay. So you kind of, when you start out playing this pretty extreme kind of thing, you're sort of painting yourself in a corner, and so finding a way to stay true to that initial vision while not just being completely repetitious, I think becomes the challenging part. Because writing death metal and stuff, that's that comes very naturally. It feels it's not that it's effortless, but it feels it feels like, oh, this is a thing that I can do. Let's get into it. Let's dig into it.
You have some experience in it,
right? But coming up with something that's going to sound like Exhumed without just being something that we've already done, that becomes sort of the challenge after all this time. And I think generally once we kind of hit upon something that we find interesting or a place that we think we can go, then the momentum kind of kicks in and it feels natural and fun. But until that time, it can feel a little, frustrating, just being like, what is it we're doing? Like, why are we doing this? Because, like how many bands as a fan, I'm like, well, I got 4 albums. And then there was like one other one I liked that came out a while later and I'm good. So I feel like we shouldn't be making a record unless we feel that it's compelling and we have a compelling reason to do so. And that becomes more the challenge. Whereas in the start, it's like, how the fuck do you write a song? How do you tune a guitar? Then it's like, how do you get a production that doesn't sound like shit? And, now that we got a handle on all those things, then the challenge becomes like, how do we not just churn out, mindless repetitions and, diminishing returns of our old ideas,
Yeah, I think you guys do that quite often because, also getting ready for this episode with you, I spent some time obviously going back because, again, it's such a long discography. It's like what, 35 years almost or something like that?
Oh, God, yeah. We put our first show like right after I turned 16 when I was a junior in high school, and I turned 50 in October. So
hell yeah. So almost 35 years. And that's a feat in itself, man. So don't feel bad about that by any means, because you've lasted so much longer than a lot of other bands in the industry and genre, and so you've outlasted them one way or another, successfully or unsuccessfully. So it doesn't necessarily matter. Here we are today. But I think it's funny, or I thought it was interesting because again, diving back into like even the first, the debut album compared to Red Assault, I think doesn't sound that different, but also sounds completely different. If that makes a sense, if that makes sense in a way, because outside of production, why production is much better in the newer albums than it was in '91. But yeah, I mean, it was something that I was kind of blown away by because EXHUMED is not a band that I've listened to every 30. You have like 30 plus releases or something like that. It's like an insane discography. So I didn't, growing up and even being in the Lambgoat here, I wasn't as familiar as I thought with the discography. But again, it was interesting going through it and checking it out and just being like, I really did think that I was like, one of these. It's very easy to get into a rut in these genres. So it was kind of exhilarating to kind of see how you guys navigated not just the eras, so to speak, but like every album. So it was nice.
That's cool. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what we're going for. Is that like, it should feel familiar, but it should feel fresh and interesting. It's like going back to a restaurant you like and being like, oh, they've got a new thing. Let's try it because I like their other stuff, but it's still, you know what I mean? Like, or it's actually not a restaurant, more like a burger joint. It's always a burger, but it's going to be, this one's got a pineapple and teriyaki sauce on it or something, So.
I definitely fall victim to the going to the same restaurant and ordering the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
That's just me, I'm like, why would I try? I mean, but I'm here now and I want to try this item, but it is what it is. Was there anything that stood out to you, like working on Red Asphalt, that was different than any of the prior releases? Like anything that was different from To the Dead or Horror or Death Revenge? Because again, like I think to me, Death Revenge and Horror were released like almost back to back, technically within like a year or two's time, and then you had a couple years in between the last two releases. So anything kind of different that you guys approached in Red Asphalt compared to the other ones?
I felt like, it's not like making every record is the same, but I do feel like once things start to click, then it feels the same, even though you're doing something different. I feel like with Horror in particular, I don't know if it's musically my favorite or I think it's our best or whatever, but I think that it was an album where everything kind of gelled in terms of the production, the cover art, the layout, the aesthetic, the whole thing, where I felt like it worked on all levels. Whereas Death Revenge and To the Dead, I feel some things about them are probably better than Horror, but as a whole, I don't know that it worked as completely. And I feel like this album, I mean, time will tell, but for right now, it feels like it worked completely. Like the artwork and the layout and the production and the songs, everything feels like, everything is complementing each other. Whereas sometimes there's a push pull that can be interesting, but it's not necessarily what we're going for. Whereas this time I feel like, everything feels like it's going in the same direction, and hopefully, that it works as a whole.
Yeah. I touched base a little bit on like your frequency of like releases, like in 17 and 19 you guys had like not back to back, but 18 months between those two albums. You said earlier like when it feels right. How do you know it feels right to like create a new album or to start a new album? Like it was 4 years. It was 4 years between the two. To the Dead and Red Asphalt. It'll be 4 years, and then you had some back to backs, and it just seems like it was a little bit longer in between this particular break between albums.
Yeah, I think. We did To the Dead, and we were talking about the sort of how long in the tooth the band was getting, and because we wrote that during the pandemic, we had a lot of time, and we ended up bringing in some of the guys from the old lineups to help write the record as just sort of a way of recognizing, hey, we've done this for a long time. And, a lot of cool people have been part of it along the way. I mean, I don't know if they're cool. I think they're cool, but they're probably like deeply weird and nerdy. But it was a way of kind of recognizing that. And then that led to, we did a a YouTube like band bio thing, that was pretty elaborate. It wasn't just like two dudes sitting there. Like we interviewed all these people and we got all this footage and all that. And then we did a tour for that. So that became a whole project. So there's always something going on, and I feel like, when is the time right? Well, the time is right, to have a new reason to go on tour, like every couple of years, really, is the sort of necessity of, the business side of the band.
Yeah.
We're not, obviously we're far from Cannibal Corpse or whatever, but at the same time, we do this, professionally, and we need to make money, and we need to go out and play shows to make money. So, the answer is it has to feel right every couple of years to have some reason to get back out there.
Gotcha.
And part of, the necessity is kind of part of the challenge, because otherwise you just might not. If you didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you might be like, I'm good, whatever. So I think that I like, deadlines, and I like sort of external pressure, because otherwise I might get lazy, and so I think that the idea of knowing like, shit, we got to do something, we got to figure something out, then we try and figure something out, and then we see where we get to, because like I said, we feel like we have to justify the album to ourselves before we can ask the people to listen to it. It's like, why? We need a new album. Why?
Yeah.
Well, we gotta go on tour. Okay, well, that's not good enough. Like creatively, why? But thankfully, we come up with something that's not too shitty, and then occasionally it's fairly good. So
every now and then, yeah, you hit gold every couple. You had to mine a little bit to hit some gold.
Indeed.
The other thing that I was curious about is because you do so much outside of EXHUMED, and I don't want to spill the beans right now because I want to get into that later as well. But because EXHUMED is a big part of your life and has been, how much of your time is focused on the band, whether it be like writing, recording, or even the touring live show aspect of it? Like, how much of your year is dedicated to just EXHUMED things?
I mean, it ebbs and flows depending on what's, what band has a record out or
the
usually,
cycle or whatever.
Yeah, and it kind of feels more or less natural and intuitive. But at the same time, EXHUMED feels kind of like my hometown, you always, you're never too far from it, mentally or emotionally or whatever, just because it's been there since high school,
you're still in your high school band, which is fucking wild, man.
Yeah, right. I mean? It is like a high school band that just has, gone on way too fucking long. So, it's always there, but it's also easy to when I'm not focused on it, I don't have to think about it because it's so ingrained, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just know it's like an old friend. Like
you've grown up together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you don't see him for 6 months, you just sit down and it's like no time has passed,
Yeah. That I've had that happen many times as an adult now, reconnecting with older friends and been like, damn, it's been a decade, but I still remember getting fucked up with you all the time.
Let's get fucked up right now.
That's usually what happens, Matt. Let's be honest. So yeah, that's true. The other thing I want to discuss. How big of a G.I. Joe fan are you, and how did this Cold Slither situation like come to pass? Because I think it's quite funny that what is it, like the company approached Metal Blade or something like that, right? The company who owns the IP or who creates G.I. Joe wanted to bring that iconic G.I. Joe band to life, and I guess like you're a part of that, right? You're like Ripper or whoever it is in the
Ripper,
band. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So explain to me,
like, clearly that's me.
That's tight. There you go.
Well, I cannot tell a lie. I am a huge nerd. G.I. Joe is a tangential thing for me. Even as a kid, I was a Marvel DC guy.
Okay.
So that was my main thing. Although, Marvel also made the G.I. Joe comic, and the Marvel animation did the cartoon. So I was very aware of that and had plenty of G.I. Joes, but that wasn't like my main thing.
You're a superhero guy.
I was a superhero guy from the word go. When they when they made the Iron Man movie, I was like, I can't believe they're making a movie about Iron Man. Like, I
And
fucking love Iron Man. Like,
and then
shit.
Guess what? You had another 50 other movies coming right on after that.
And I'm like the biggest, just like bring it on, more. Like, my wife's like, don't you ever get tired of these? I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Interesting.
She's like, come on, you saw Madam Web and you're still going back? I was like, yep, I was still want more. But Gus Rios, who's the drummer in Gruesome, one of my other bands, he is a huge Transformers and G.I. Joe guy. Those are both owned by Hasbro. Gus used to play drums in Malevolent Creation, and they worked with the label boss of Reigning Phoenix. And
that's who it was. Sorry, I said Metal Blade.
That's all good. And he and Gerardo, the label boss, have always stayed tight because Gerardo is also a huge G.I. Joe nerd. And so, Gerardo kind of doing that, he came from Nuclear Blast, and obviously they have, pretty big names, like they did the Slayer record and all this stuff. So he's much more tied into the, kind of corporate side of things than I certainly. And, he had pitched Cold Slither to Hasbro before, but they were coming up on the 40th anniversary of the cartoon episode. They wanted to do a box set, and Gerardo's like, well, hey, I know a guy. So he contacted Gus, and Gus is like, well, you and I work together. We're both songwriters, even though Gus doesn't play drums, he plays guitar and sings in Cold Slither. And I was like, cool. And, our bass player in EXHUMED, Ross, is a humongous G.I. Joe and Transformers guy, as well as being a comic book superhero guy. He's deep into the Hasbro thing. He has a whole Instagram account where he just does G.I. Joe photography, and he gets very elaborate, and they're in lakes and they're in space and there's explosions. And he did a whole adaptation of The Thing, the movie, with G.I. Joe figures, and it's brilliant. So, I'm very much the casual G.I. Joe fan in that band. So I don't want to,
speak out of turn.
He's a very deep nerd. I don't want to be like, yeah, I fucking love G.I. It's like, yeah, I like G.I. Joe a lot, and I know a lot more than your average metal fan, but a lot less than those two guys.
Yeah, you're nerdy in your own right. I mean, you're talking about comic books and Marvel. That's a different level of nerd. In all honesty, I think it's probably a worse level of nerd, because at least you could be like, no, I'm into like mainly Army G.I. Joe's type stuff, not like, oh, I like all these like, superhero, supervillain stuff. But again, I was into both as a kid, so what do I? And I'm also a nerd, so I don't, it's all big, it's all nerdy to me. But
it's great, and it's super. And that was an episode of G.I. Joe I was very familiar with. Like, I knew Cold Slither. I could sing you, the first line of the song, and I knew exactly what the plot of the cartoon was. And the showrunner for G.I. Joe was a guy named Steve Gerber that wrote Howard the Duck for Marvel in the 70s. So I was like, I'm right there in the wheelhouse, and you're probably not going to find another metal guitar player too quickly that is better cut out for this. So I was very excited to get involved, and, just to dip a toe into that world. And they did a Cold Slither comic book, and it was great. It was super fun.
Is that something that's still ongoing? Or, I mean, because you guys played like one or two shows last year, right? Like, you kind of like made it an official thing. And you show up at Comic Cons, right? Like one or two Comic Cons, maybe.
Yeah, we did. We did a show in conjunction with San Diego Comic Con, which was the launch of the action figures, and then we did a show a few months later at New York Comic Con. We're talking about some more stuff like that. We also did a Christmas song, which was hilarious. Ross did a whole stop motion video with all the figures and stuff. So it's fucking charming. So I hope that we'll do more. It's hard to say because the band, is owned by a toy company.
Right.
And Hasbro has, they're fucking selling Monopoly games, man. They're not really that worried about our dumb rock band.
They don't have the pulse. They don't have their finger on the metal pulse, I would assume.
Yeah. But we are wrapping up another project for Hasbro that will get announced, I assume, sometime this year, that I'm very excited about. That is not Cold Slither.
Oh my God, you're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles now.
I Does Hasbro own that now?
I don't know.
I think,
I would assume they own everything at some point.
yeah,
Everyone gets bought out and it all gets appropriated.
of course, corporation devours corporation. But anyway, like I said, I can't talk about it yet.
No, I get you.
You know,
I can just daydream that it's 4 guys, 4 turtles. So, maybe it's teenage. Not that there's an episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where they're in a band or anything. Or if there is, I can't remember it. But yeah.
not that I know.
I was big into that. So, as a Marvel fan, like these Comic Cons got to be crazy for you. Or do you go to them? Did you go to them prior to being in the band, or was that like your first taste of like a con?
Well, I mean, the last time I'd only been to one San Diego Comic Con, and it was in 1994. So it's
drastically different. Yeah.
Right. I will say I went in 94. I got Stan Lee to sign my coverless Fantastic Four #1, and that was pretty cool. The best part was he goes, "Oh, the first Fantastic Four, 1963," and I was like, I think it came out in 1961, Stan. It did come out in 1961. And his little assistant person was like, I think it was 1961, Stan. And he's like, 1963. And I was like, oh,
well,
I'm not going to argue with this guy.
You're like the man, yeah. So you can, whatever, in your reality.
But it was very charming. So no, it's completely different now. It's much more of like a multimedia pop culture thing. And I found myself at both cons. I walked around and looked at everything and I was like, oh, look, there's a guy dressed up like Galactus and he's like 12 feet tall and that's amazing. And then I just wandered over to where people were actually like selling comics, which is kind of shunted, way over there. And I just walked around and looked at old comics that I couldn't afford. And that was really,
yeah. So you do you collect comics? Is that like a big thing for you?
Yeah.
Being a Marvel fan, I should assume that, but
Well, I mean, not anymore, but yes.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was big into card. I mean, I got back into card collecting here as an adult, which is a horrible addiction to be a part of. But right. I remember being so into like the Marvel cards and the DC cards back in the day that more so than the baseball cards or like sports cards, but I liked how like you would get 9 of those cards, or you could trade or find 9 of those cards, and they would create like a full binder page image. That was always neat for me. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I worked at a comic store in between 92 and 94, I guess it was, and yeah, we sold those cards hand over fist.
Yeah.
And then they were doing trading cards for everything. We even had fucking porn trading cards.
Yeah. Have you looked into trading cards now, Matt? It's insane.
No, I haven't. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, people are just washing money left and right. That's what I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have sports cards, autographed 1-of-1s, and like low numbered cards that are going for millions of dollars, and it is nuts. I myself pulled an Aaron Judge 1-of-1 card out of a pack or whatever I bought last year, and I didn't know how much to put it on eBay for, so I was like, you know what, I'll just put it on for $1,000 and I'll deal with it in the morning. I'd probably put it on there at 3 a.m. By 6 a.m. it had sold already for $1,000, and I was like, damn it.
Wow.
I probably could have got a lot more for that card, but yeah, so it's wild. The trading card or the collectibles world is nuts. Just, I mean, you'll find stuff that's like Marvel related, movie prop related, or anything like that also being auctioned off. That it's nuts.
I mean, I do have a couple.
Oh, I could already have told you. Hey, you could have told me that you have some figurines and stuff there.
Some card packs here. I have a pack of Howard the Duck movie cards.
Awesome. Yes.
The Rocketeer.
Oh yeah.
Any picture of Jennifer Connelly, I value highly. This one I just bought because I was like, what the fuck is a Coors? I love Coors Banquet, but I was like, what the fuck is a Coors trading card? Like, what is, like, why would you have Coors trading cards?
I don't know, but as a Coors Light drinker, I may have to Google that after we get done with this and figure out what that's all about.
I had to get one. And I think I have a pack of Supergirl cards back there as well.
Nice. I got a lot of the older cards are becoming a thing. Like I do a couple of like DJ nights that are like focused around, like new metal is one of the nights, and like emo night styled events that are not emo music. But I'll sell like CDs. Like I'll go, search out like new metal or older CDs, and I'll have those for sale at a table. But I also started doing like pop rock stars and pop stars. You'll find those like packs for like cheap sometimes, and like a 50 cent or 25 cent bin, and it's cool that you open them up and there's like old pictures of Prince, but Slayers, and like you can get Slayer or Prince or like a Heavy D and the Boys in the same pack. So you never know.
I do have a whole box of the, I think they're called Heavy Metal Mania.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
That I've opened, and are they in here? No, I think they're in the other room.
Yeah,
but I was a comic book guy, but I did get into baseball cards like in the mid '80s. It was like something my dad and I bonded over. God,
I don't want to go down the baseball card route because we'll fucking derail this whole podcast. But continue. You and your dad, in the '80s are collecting cards.
Yeah, I remember like the 86 set was a big one, and I remember like the God, what the fuck do they call it? The tops, like the expansion, the smaller set that comes out after the year started, and the 86 one had like Jose Canseco's rookie card in there.
Was it traded or loaded or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, all the 86 Mets, I remember I can still picture the 86 Fleer, like Keith Hernandez and like Darryl Strawberry cards in my head and stuff.
He's one that I collect.
Okay,
Hernandez.
nice.
And I collect Hernandez off the dumbest reason whatsoever. It's only because he was in Seinfeld. Like I'm not a Met. Like I like the Mets now, but like I didn't grow up like liking Keith Hernandez. It just was funny. I grew up looking at Keith Hernandez on Jerry Seinfeld sometimes.
So there you go.
Yeah,
that's how these rabbit holes we find ourselves in. But yeah, I mean, I gave up on watching baseball after the Giants finally won the World Series 3 times within 5 years, and then immediately became shitty. And I was like, you know what? I waited my whole life for this. I got 5 years of amazing baseball, and now they suck. And I'll come back and start watching when they're going to get in the playoffs again because it's a time suck. Like watching sports is so fun, but it is such a fucking time suck.
I grew up being a big football fan because when I was younger, I live in North Florida, and so Jacksonville got the Jaguars when I was in my early teens.
Sure.
So of course that became like my personality. I was like, we're the best team in the world. F everybody else, and it was like that for decades until a couple years after I was out of high school. I moved to Tampa, and then like they went to the World Series in 2007. And so I got wrapped up into that, being down there, and never really being into baseball other than playing it as like a kid, little league style. But I never really like watched it. So I got wrapped up since like '07. I just became like a Rays fan since then. And since then, they've been more competitive year in, year out than my Jaguars have. So like over the last 15 years, I've just kind of become like a diehard Rays fan. And this last year for the Jaguars was amazing. Was an amazing year. So I did get like, I've been brought back in the last couple of years with Trevor Lawrence and stuff. But still, I think I've traveled more. I've gone to more away games with the Rays than I have with like the Jaguars. And it's just easier.
Tampa's a great place to be a sports fan, man. Like, oh yeah, you guys are dominating across many sports.
I only like the Rays. Fuck every other team that's down there. But like, yeah, I'm only a Rays guy. But yeah, it's easier to deal with losses when you have 162 games instead of 18, So
right. And it's funny, like when the Raiders moved, that was my cue to stop watching football because the team was so shitty. And then they moved again, and I was like, "Fuck these guys! Like, fuck this! God damn it! Like, fuck!" And my wife's like, "Can we just take a year off you like cursing and swearing every weekend?" Like
I've gotten that before. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And every once in a while, I got some buddies that are like, "Oh man, you're gonna come back like this year," and I was like, "Okay, we'll see, guys." And then I look at the record, and it's like, 2-5. It's like, no, this is not the year that you're going to get me to come back and watch.
But that's the good thing about football is like week fucking after the first month or two, you know for sure this is pointless. Like if you're 2-5, don't even fucking pay. It's done, dude. Why even invest any time in that?
Right.
And then the worst part is like we were bad for so long, the Jaguars. We were bad for so long that I started getting all these like wild conspiracy theories as to like why do we even have a team here? Like what are we doing? And then you start realizing like, oh, not every team actually wants to win in general across all sports. I mean, like it's just a business, and like as long as the business is profitable and it keeps making money, the fans want a championship, but the company or the
owners, it's incidental.
When you have the Marlins make as much as the Marlins make more than the Dodgers after payroll and everything is said and done anyways, and they win way more championships out there. So it's like, why would the Marlins guy even fucking go that route?
Well, there's a theory about the Raiders and Vegas, and the theory is that because you get most of the people at the games actually aren't from Vegas,
right?
And because the Raiders have been terrible now for years, that the people will be more likely to come to an away game in Vegas because they would go to Vegas to vacation anyway.
Right.
So when the Vikings come, people want to go see their team win. They don't want to go across the country.
No, yeah, true.
Maybe. So the Raiders being shitty actually puts more people in the seats than the Raiders being good.
Yeah, I get that.
And I don't know if that's true, but it made sense, and the team sucks, and I was like, cool, I don't have to watch football anymore. I can just, every once in a while just get drunk and watch old YouTube highlights of Joe Punk.
There you go. There you go.
And be like, hey, this is the greatest professional sports experience.
Classic.
But
yeah, I mean, that is definitely a thing. And for a while there, I was like, man, I really hope they do something stupid enough, like move my team to where I can really just, because London was a big thing for us for like a decade. Everyone said we were going to London, and I was like, dude, if they fucking move to London, do you know how I'll just be free? I'll be free, dude. I'll be free.
Yeah. You're off the hook, man. And that's how I felt. I was like, because if the team was great and they were really competitive, I'm sure I would have kept watching.
Yeah, but
I was like, this team sucks.
Same with me. I took a step back from like being just a wild fan and being like, oh, we've only had like 7 winning seasons out of 30. I'm just fucking delusional. You know what I mean? Like I'm delusional to the max. Like we are the Browns since the Browns came back into the league. So it's like, whatever, But hey, we got a quarterback now, so who knows? Maybe things are different.
Next year could be the one.
But anyway, we've derailed, so let's kind of try to get back on. We got to get some more of the death metal grind.
Death metal, huh? Wow.
Grindcore and death metal fans. We've lost them all, so let's get back into it. But yeah, Sorry. I've been dealing with a cold for the last 2 weeks, so that's been fun.
I hear it. It's all right.
Yeah. Are you still out in you're still on the West Coast, right?
I am, yes. I'm very much a Californian at heart. So yeah, I don't live in the Bay anymore. For about the last 15 years now, I've been in San Luis Obispo County, which is halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco along the coast. Pretty quiet place. We've got a college. We got about 250 wineries. We have a couple beaches. Pismo Beach is a place people may have heard of. That's not too far from here. So yeah, it's very laid back, pretty relaxed way of life here.
Have you been dealing with the whole thing right now is the whole like polar fucking wave coming through the country? We were at 70 degrees yesterday, so it wasn't necessarily too bad for us, but
no, it doesn't sound boy, that sounds terrible.
Everyone doesn't like inches of ice except for like right above us. Everyone above us is just iced out.
Right. No, we're chill. I mean, it's pretty predictable. Like our studio is in the city of San Luis Obispo, and I live on the other side of a mountain. So on our side of the mountain, it's like hot in the summer, but during the winter, it's like it's cold in the morning, and then it's mild during the day. It's like 35 to 65 on a normal day. So I got a coat for when I walk the dogs in the morning, and then I got shorts for the afternoon, and I'm good.
It's kind of like here, except minus the coat.
Right.
We just sometimes it gets too hot though. Fuck it, whatever. How many things are you a part of, Matt? Like projects wise that you can talk about. Obviously, you got a new one coming out that you can't talk about. That's Hasbro related, but you're in you're in Gruesome, you're in Exhumed,
Well, really, Gruesome, Exhumed, and Left to Die are kind of the things that are going concerns at the moment. And Left to Die is sort of something that happened because of Gruesome. Gus, the aforementioned G.I. Joe maniac, Gus and I, we did a show with Terry Butler and James Murphy where we did spiritual healing front to back. And Rick, the guitar player on Leprosy, was like, oh, these guys are pretty good. And obviously he's known Terry for, longer than half of us have been alive. So he would hit up Terry. He's like, oh, you think these guys would want to do that, but with Leprosy? And we did. And so we've been doing shows now for a few years, and it's super fun. We just played, stuff from the first 2 Death records, and, stuff I grew up learning to play. And, people keep asking us to come back. So apparently they like it. And yeah, those are kind of the main things. Cold Slither is a sort of if and when.
Right.
I don't know how. I don't know how it would work if we wanted to do a tour, even if we could, because, like I said, a giant corporation owns the band. So we can't really do anything without their say so, which is which is fine. It's an interesting way to work. I've always been from the DIY scene or whatever. So
yeah, it's drastically different.
Yeah, but it's kind of neat, and it also makes sense, working with Gerardo, with our manager. I was always like, man, if you're at this level, you're kind of lazy if you need a manager. What's the deal with that? And then now that we're dealing with a giant corporation, like I said, that owns G.I. Joe, Transformers, Monopoly, fucking all this shit. I'm like, thank God we have somebody.
I don't want to deal with that. Go do that.
The corporation, because they want a specific thing, and then we got to figure out what to do. So it's fun. It's super fun.
Yeah. So Gruesome starts out as what, like a tribute / cover band for Death, but then does it evolve into you guys writing your own Death styled songs, or?
No, that's how it started, is by writing our own songs. Before. Left to Die was the thing. Gus and I were talking about DTA, Death to All, and it's great seeing Gene and Bobby, and then also Sean and Paul and all these people that they've worked with through the years playing all these songs. But we were just like, why? How come why don't they ask Chris Reifert to do Scream Bloody Gore? Where's Bill Andrews? Where's James Murphy? Where's Terry? Where's Rick? And our thought was we should pitch that to the DTA management and see if it goes anywhere. And Gus did, and it didn't go anywhere. And the joke I made during that conversation was if it doesn't go anywhere, we'll just write our own Death songs and make our own band, and that would be hilarious. And I ended up just having some time on my hands. And before my wife moved here and we were dating, I was over in England, where she's from, and she was working, so I was sitting around her house for, several hours. She worked in a pub, and I was like, I shouldn't be in a pub for 8 hours. We're not going to do anything afterwards. So I was like, oh, there's an old shitty guitar in the corner. I'll pick this up, and banged out a couple riffs. And I was like, oh, this feels like a Death riff. That's funny. And, I sent it to Gus, and he was like, actually, this is good. We could do something with this. And I was like, no, get the fuck out of here. And he was right. And so, yeah, we just started out kind of writing our own, they're like, I don't know, companion pieces, I guess, to the Death records, more or less.
Yeah. How does it different approaching? Because you seem like a guy that, like you said earlier, and right when we first got on, you got pissed when they removed some imagery, when certain fucking death metal tropes and everything like that started going by the wayside. You were like, "Fuck that! I'm keeping it real. I'm in the streets." So how do you, if everything that you ever kind of basically known for the most part for at least the first 20 years is exhumed and writing for exhumed and stuff like that, how did you differentiate even writing for Gruesome or any of the other groups that you were in past that too?
Well, I mean, even after the first Exhumed album, the next album that our drummer and I did was for a band called Decapitator, and it was like a straight up like German thrash thing. Very Creator, Destruction, Sodom.
I was gonna say call back to the Creator
Yeah,
song on your list there.
and it was like you know, I grew up learning, other people's records, as best I could. Obviously, it was very different in the pre-internet era. You didn't go on YouTube and watch a guy play it, and then be on his Patreon to download the tab or whatever. You just sat there with your cassette tape, and you're like, no, rewind, rewind. Oh, that might be it. And I spent hours and hours doing that. And Death was a band that I really gravitated to because A, the band was killer. But B, the way Chuck writes stuff, he was not a learned musician. Like he didn't know theory or anything, but he has a very systematic pattern-based way of writing that it's kind of like once you unlock a few things, once you get past that initial learning curve, you're able to sort of start learning a lot of his stuff fairly naturally from there. And the patterns that he picks and the tonalities that he used for whatever reason made sense to me. Whereas like Slayer, I love Slayer. I mean, everybody loves Slayer. Yeah. My ears work. But I'll learn a Slayer song and I'll play it. I'm like, I can play it. This is great, whatever. And then I'll come back 2 weeks later and I'll be like, how the fuck did that go? It doesn't make any sense to me. But the Death songs just made sense to me. So it really clicked. And, I felt really, really familiar with that material in a way that, I wouldn't with most bands. So coming back and doing Gruesome, felt pretty natural. Whereas if you're like, hey, you love Entombed, why don't you do a band that sounds just like Entombed? It's like, well, it would just sound like Exhumed with an HM2 pedal because I didn't sit there for hours and hours learning those riffs. Because by that time, I think I was already trying to write my own songs or whatever, and I didn't spend as much time with it. Plus, figuring out how to like just tune your, shitty $150 guitar with no locking nut or anything. Like, what tuning are they in? And your strings are all fucked up, and because you're 14, and you don't know how to set up a guitar and all that stuff. It was a little more complicated,
That's hilarious. How much was it? How much like East Coast Floridian influence was in your earlier days growing up in the Bay Area? Like, because you obviously are a big fan of Death, and so like Death's from Florida, so are a grand list of other early death metal bands. So how much like what is the percentage of like West Coast and East Coast influence in your early interest in death metal in general?
I mean, honestly, I would say the early stuff was really primarily British, like Napalm and Carcass were like those are my big two, and that's kind of what I discovered immediately after Death. It was like Napalm Death, and that sort of opened that whole, web of Napalm Death, Carcass, Terrorizer, Godflesh, et cetera, et cetera. And, like, obviously I love Florida death metal, but to me, Death is almost like its own thing, in that you hear Morbid Angel and then you hear Monstrosity and you hear Brutality. And I feel like those are a little bit more sonically close in style than Death, which to me is very distinctive. But Death and Obituary those two particularly were always really big influences. The first Obituary album really hit me like a ton of bricks when I was a kid. I remember it really clearly. Original drummer in Exhumed, still my best friend. I've known him since we were like, 12 or whatever. And my family had rented a house for a weekend in Santa Cruz, the beach town. And we went to the record store because that's what we did. We're 13. And he bought Gross Misconduct by MOD, and I bought Slowly We Rot. This is 1989. We listened to MOD because we liked the first album. We're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, all right, right on. And then we put on this Obituary tape, And as soon as the vocal came in, we just looked at each other and we just burst out laughing, like side splitting laughter. We're like, I cannot believe this motherfucker. Like, what kind of asshole just gets a mic? It's like,
Yeah.
What a fucking dickhead. I love it. And we listened to that tape over and over and over. And I remember reading an article about it in Metal Mania. And that was the first time that I really connected death metal as being a genre, and being, distinct from sort of more extreme thrash. To me, there was like entry level thrash, and then like the lighter bands, like Sacred Reich, American Way, and stuff.
Right.
And then it was like Sodom and Creator and the stuff that was, a little more aggressive. And I didn't really, I had death, but I didn't think, oh, this is a different color. And I was like, oh, like death. Okay. I get it. So yeah, those two bands in particular were just humongous.
Yeah. Obituary is,
but especially death metal wise.
Oh, where's he at?
Go ahead. Oh shit, we froze.
I think you froze up for, I think a little bit, at least audio wise, you're back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, video's back. Sorry. Go on. You were saying death and obituary.
But yeah, when we wanted to start a death metal band in the Bay Area, it was kind of tough going. A, because we were, high school kids who had like one friend with a car, but B, because where we were from, even in 1990 when we started talking about doing this, the Bay Area was still very much like Bay Area thrash.
Yeah,
that's it. And the new kind of popular rock that was coming up was like Faith No More, Primus.
Okay.
That was like the next wave of Bay Area music. And people were like, this death metal shit is dumb. It's idiotic. They're just running like animals. And I remember thinking, even at the time, I'm like, what do you think fucking Judas Priest fans were saying about like Exodus and Metallica in 1984? Like, come on, man, open your eyes. Like the shit, it's got to keep moving, man. So it really, to me, Florida was just as exotic as like Sweden or England or Brazil or anywhere else that bands we listened to might have been from, whether it was, Entombed and Unleashed or Sepultura and Sarcophago or whatever. It just was like clearly not really happening where we lived, which was kind of what appealed to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, cool, this can be our lane,
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Obviously, like growing up with that, I took it for granted, I guess, a little bit that these bands were local to me, especially when I was in like high school, middle school, high school. I didn't listen to anything like that. I was more into the cool guy nu metal groups. Limp Bizkit was from here, so I was a big fucking Limp Bizkit guy.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, I grew up on rap and some Led Zeppelin rock and roll from my dad. It wasn't necessarily, niche extreme music, unfortunately. But eventually we got here, so it all played out. But Obituary is one of those bands that I've like in the last 10 years gotten super back into, just because they are Floridian, so that's cool too. That's a big
They're
thing.
about as Floridian as you could possibly be.
Yeah. So that's a plus for sure. I had him on the podcast. I had Dan on the podcast a year or 2, 3 ago or whatever. That was cool. But then you start seeing them. I started seeing them live a lot more, and I'm like, God damn. And there again, this is something that a lot of death metal bands probably have to overcome in their tenure of being a band is production values weren't necessarily great, and again, a lot of these bands wanted their albums to sound like these other bands' albums, which weren't really doing like great production, but thus that became the sound of the genre. But I just saw Obituary in December. They did like a little Florida tour for like something like 35 years of something, Cause of Death, and then you're listening to them, and I'm like, fuck me, dude, it sounds so much fucking better live. Like, you know what I mean? There's like 3 or 4 dudes up there, depending on if it's them or, you know, another fucking like what Dying Fetus at FYA or something like that. These bands are like fucking blowing me away all over again, just because again I'm only used to listening to them sometimes on like audio and it doesn't sound as great. But damn, you know, an Obituary just announced like they're playing like small shows, small venues, and they're playing like the Woolly in Gainesville, and I'm like, dude, I have to fucking go down and see what that even is like at this point, you know.
They in particular, I think, you know, especially for a band that's been around as long as them, they are a devastating live band. I played a lot of shows with Obituary, both in Exhumed and Gruesome. And, you know, when you go on tour with a band, it doesn't matter how much you love the band. You're not going to watch the fucking gig every night, you know.
Yeah, no.
Like, it doesn't matter. I toured with some of my favorite bands. You know, there might be a couple nights where you watch the whole thing, but I feel like with Obituary, I would always at least want to see a couple songs. Or I would be like just doing whatever backstage, like, oh, let me, you know, find that clean pair of jeans or whatever. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Okay, let me go check this out.
Yeah.
You know, whereas lots of other bands that you tour with, even if you like the band, you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'll see them tomorrow, whatever. But Obituary is like every night I'd be like, oh, I gotta at least check out. Oh, okay, look at this, because they're just so fucking good live. And you know, it's not easy to do when you're in your 50s, and it's great to see. You know,
I kind of am curious to see how much longer we'll be able to get to see a lot of these extreme aggressive bands that have just become older in their age now. You know, like you were saying Napalm Death earlier, and you have like the Obituary guys and all these other guys. And I don't want to throw you under the bus as well, Matt, but you know, all you guys have been around for 30 plus years, and it's like.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are only you know 7 or 8 years older than me at this point,
right.
Which was, you know, when I was 15 going to their gigs and they were 22, it was a huge difference. But now that I'm 50 and they're 57, 58, it's it doesn't that much of a difference.
And I mean, and not to say that you can't do it until your 80s and stuff like that. I mean, Priest is still out there doing it. Ozzy did it up until he died, you know. But again, like I just feel like these genres are a little more taxing on your body than say like, you know, what style of metal those bands are also playing too. So I'm interested to see how long we all have with these bands. It'll be interesting.
No, it is an interesting thing, and it's something that I never could have imagined as a kid.
That's what I'm saying. I thought
it's coming out.
You would have never told me that we'd still be talking about the same fucking group of bands, let alone a new crop of group of bands that are just like them.
Right. But, yeah, the idea that death metal would still be here in 2026, I would have found laughable. And the idea that Morbid Angel and Obituary and all these bands would still be going, I would have just found completely like inconceivable.
You know? bigger than they've ever been.
It's a wild, it's a wild world. But it's interesting because, you know, rock in general, it's such a youth focused, or traditionally was such a youth focused
right.
kind of pop cultural movement. And as time goes on, I feel like the entire demographic for rock and metal is just shifting older and older. And, you know, I also feel like rock had a really unnaturally long lifespan because it was sort of the first kind of, it became popular as mass media enabled it to stick around longer.
Right.
In the 50s, you've got the advent of television, and then, you know, with the record industry changing and singles moving to albums,
MTV, VH1, all these other like
right.
music. Yep.
And so, you know, rock really should probably have been over by like, you know, the mid 70s, really. You know, if you look at other kinds of popular music, they kind of come and go within like 15, 20 years. And rock has been hanging around for, you know, 70 fucking years since like Chuck Berry and Elvis and Little Richard. So,
right. But if it went away, like, I don't think I don't think you'd be here, or you'd be here, but not as Matt Harvey of Exhumed. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It would have been a very different life. And it probably would have been closer to what I thought. Well, like, oh, you know, I'll play in a band for a few years, and then, you know, we'll see what happens. And, you know, maybe eventually I'll go back to college. But
I mean, like, if rock were to have died, like you were, you know, if rock would have died in the 70s, 80s, or whatever,
I might have been a comic book artist. Who knows?
Could have been cosplaying at the Comic Cons. Yeah. But I mean,
That
like,
was my whole career path before music was I was going to draw comics. Like all I did was draw. And I mean, I still like draw some of our shirts and stuff. Like that was like my whole fucking thing. And then, a bunch of stuff happened. It was like my parents got divorced. I went to a new school. I started getting zits. And
angry. I just became angry at the world.
Yep. Then I heard Metallica and I was like, that's it. I'm going to sell my comics and buy a guitar. And,
And I want just gory imagery all day long. Don't sell out. Yep. Don't be a bitch. I want to end it on this. I want to end our little chat here on what type of jerky were you eating prior to the episode starting?
Oh, I was eating the chomps, the jalapeno beefsteak.
Man. How am I going to elaborate on chomps?
I mean, it's just the basic what they have at Trader Joe's. I know it should be something way more.
I'm not gonna make fun of you for eating Slim Jims.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, do you really need a reason to do the Macho Man voice? You can
no, you don't, I guess. But I was hoping you're gonna say some kind of like exquisite beef jerky selection, and I was gonna then reiterate my favorite jerky, which is like No Man's Land. Have you ever had that?
I have not. No.
I don't know if it's available out there, but fuck, No Man's Land is like great. And they have it's very dry and chewy and stuff like that. They have like a hot and spicy one, which is pretty fucking dank too. But yeah, I like a lot of beef jerky. Most of the ones I like are not the big ones. Like a lot of people around here make their own jerky, so like I'll definitely try that out.
That's very cool.
Buc-ee's has a big wall of jerky, but that's also intimidating. There's too many flavors to choose from, and then you don't want to make a wrong selection and have like a $16 bag of like bad meat you don't eat. But
right in a hot car in Central Texas in the summer, a fucking $16 bag of meat just warming.
It's like sometimes when you get that little lime flavored stuff, and you get it like it's all hot, and you put it in your mouth. It's like fuck me, dude.
But the first couple bites are really good.
Oh yeah.
It's hot. I feel like jerky too it's one of those things, one of the great things about today, which is a sentence I don't say very often, but one of the great things about today is that I feel like there's whatever you're into, like you can get really fucking deep into it.
Yes.
And like I know a couple of people that are into jerky and they're into it like people are into wine or beer or music or whatever. And like, oh my God, there's this like venison street with whatever. And the process, this guy, he takes it in this certain kind of smoke. It's like, oh my God, this is insane. It's just jerky.
Yeah.
No, you haven't had this jerky. And I think it's great. I love hearing about whatever people are like really excited about, whether it's action or jerky or whatever. And I love that we're embracing going all in on whatever weird shit makes you happy.
Yeah, the niche content and the niche movement is definitely here to stay. And so like you can go deep on anything. There's 3 million videos of whatever it is you want to look up on YouTube. It'll teach you everything you need to know, whether it's beer. I got that way. I didn't get that way with beer, but when I was like heavy into weed like a decade ago, I got super into it that way. I was like, oh, I get why people are like really dumb about wine, because like you can get like if you start growing something or if you start getting into the nitty gritty, it's like, oh, I totally understand how you fucking lose yourself in any of this. But
and I think I'm like just a normal level beer enthusiast. And then I realized when I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh no, this one has Mosaic hops. Like it's totally different. Simcoe is good, but Mosaic it's got a nicer character, but they got these new hops. Now they're importing from New Zealand and they're fucking amazing. And people look at me like, what?
Yeah. You're McLovin beer off of Superbad,
Yeah. But it's, it's the same way. Talk to me about, death metal demos from the 80s, talk to me about Bay Area thrash, talk to me about Marvel from the 60s and 70s, and I'll just go forever, and it's great,
Yeah. On that note, we'll cut it here. If you don't mind sticking around for 3 seconds afterwards, I'll cut you loose there. I know we were a little longer today, but Matt, thank you for joining us on the Vanflip here, and if you've made it this far, go check out his 6 Songs to Die With. Red Asphalt's coming out in February 20th, I believe, right? Your tour starts the same day or the day before that, so you can catch them around the country. And then if you're in Europe, you can go see them with Gruesome. Matt will be pulling double duty. Matt, thank you very much. We'll see you around.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Take it easy.